Ladies and gentlemen, episode number 21. Today's case study is with Ken Droz, and Ken has been a great soundboard to a lot of my AI escapades. I get a chance to talk a lot of AI stuff with Ken, and I really appreciate his friendship, his thoughts, and his advice on certain things. We get very philosophical with business in this conversation. And if you don't know, Ken is the best half of Amy Yamada, a previous case study that I covered. He is the brains behind a lot of the artificial intelligence that happens in Amy's business. We talk about some really important things that I think you should consider when you're a business owner, a creative that is looking to incorporate AI into your business. Come on, let's learn. Hey, it's Ronsley. Welcome, you AI geek, to this podcast, my AI love affair. Consider this podcast your digital compass, guiding you through the labyrinth that is business growth using artificial intelligence. Running a business as a creative can sometimes be like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. But what if you had a secret tool that could align all the colors for you? That is AI. It's like a master key unlocking multiple doors. Thanks for being here. Let's learn. What's happening with you? Feels like ages.
I've been helping Amy in the coaching space for several years. And really it was at the beginning of this year when ChatGPT really took hold. We kind of shifted gears and dove into ChatGPT as much as we could and created a guide and helping people around finding their authentic voice, trying to really bring the human element into an increasingly automated world. And so we've been working to serve people in that space who are coming to terms with how their identity is changing, how the landscape of workforces in all industry right now are changing how they see people, and trying to create a space for us to still be able to be ourselves where AI is so powerful and it's not turning back. So I've kind of stumbled into this AI world, and now I'm coaching people around the adoption of AI technologies through ChatGPT. I've been spending a lot of time in the AI space, and I find I've got a lot more to offer people than I realized.
But one of the things you mentioned in what you spoke about at the start was identity. So I feel like maybe let's get some of these conversations out of the way in terms of how are you seeing people's identity are being shifted, and what is the identity that they're going in with that you're seeing when you're having these conversations with people?
Fascinating, because identity is really at the core of so much of what we do. And when we're working in the coaching business, for the most part, people are all peddling similar strategies and ideas. But the thing that really sets them apart is the value of their identity. And part of that is what people see in them, but that largely comes from how they see themselves, right? If that truly is their identity and they are holding to that value of themselves. And so we all get the opportunity to say who we are, what we stand for, what we represent. It comes to be a part of us.
How people were worried about AI replacing them. What are you seeing? How is AI forcing people to look at their identity? They are resisting it because it is hitting up against what they thought their identity was meant to be.
Identity is the big threat. It's interesting to me that people say, I'm going to be replaced. And it's like, no, you're not going to be replaced. This isn't about you. Your job actually might be replaced, but you can still do it, right? Like you could still do the work you're doing. That doesn't change you. You're not going away, right? And what's challenging about AI is that this change is something that is being forced upon us, that we have to understand that our identity will change. Our work is going to change. And when we identify ourselves by the work we do, then that feels like a loss of who we are. And when we talk about AI with people, on almost every workshop we do, one of the first questions we get is, will it remember me? Am I still going to exist?
I love these conversations, Ken, because it's an eye opener to a lot of things. It helps a conversation chain form inside my brain. How are you seeing AI? What have you seen in the last few months of being involved in this? And you've done way more coaching, seeing people adopt it for the first time. What's that been like for you?
I think that this loss of identity is one of the surprises that has come up for me. That there's people are really struggling to hold on to the limitations that they've known. And so the solutions they're coming up with aren't based on what is possible. It's based on what has been challenging for them. And so wrapping our head around this infinite support, we don't know how to do it. And when we see it, it's hard to look at because it's not fixing problems we've ever had. It's solving everything at once. And what are we now? What do we do?
We are worried about the pace at which AI is going at.
How do we preserve our identity?
Yeah.
How do we stay relevant and not give up who we know ourselves to be and still feel like we have our footing in the world?
We consider ourselves to be the intelligent beings, right? And now that there is some other intelligence that has come and challenging that intelligence, we're calling it artificial and we're calling artificial intelligence. What happens when that is just an evolution, that our intelligence has created something that can be more intelligent than us? What if it starts to attain its own goals?
Yeah, that gets kind of scary, right?
So how do we manage this rate of change?
I feel like we all have to submit to being really flexible because even the people that are ready for it aren't ready for it. The people that are staying on the cutting edge are having to learn not how to adopt what has, not how to adapt to what has just come out, but how to adopt to the constant environment of change.
What are things that business owners should look at from an AI perspective? Come to mind straight away.
The thing that's the easiest for business owners to look at right now is content generation. It seems like it's the lowest hanging fruit that we can have any kind of text generated for us. And if we're careful and mindful of how we are training our AI assistants to speak, we can get them to sound like us, to actually represent us so that we can have our voice in the industry that we're speaking in and feel good that it's simply amplifying us and not replacing us. So content is the first place. Business owners that I've talked to, who's an influential person in the coaching world, has said that 90% of all content is going to be AI generated in within 5 years. And when the first time I heard that, that was a really alarming number when I was trying to think of, what does that mean for us that only 10% of it is going to be human generated?
One of the things that hit me was how important podcast is, especially in a world where everything else is generated using AI. A podcast where you're actually having the conversation like this. But these conversations become more and more part of interesting content than what it used to be, where it was like, oh, it's just another person having a conversation. And I wonder how much that is going to change in terms of our behavior as well.
I have been working on a lot is figuring out how to instill when a bot creates an output, how do we preserve not only the voice and tone and spirit and energy of a person in how they sound, but also what are their values? What are their beliefs? What's their purpose? What's their mission? Right? It can, we can get it to actually start to represent those things that are a part of our identity. And so if we can sear our identity into what is creating our content, then the content it's creating, we might even read and say, yes, that is true. I didn't write it, but only because I didn't have time. That actually is exactly what I would say. What's challenging is when when we think about what if the bot isn't created from the point of view of the speaker, but instead to the desires of the receiver. That's a little bit more compromised. And we're going to need to have some kind of safeguards about what is a real human connection. What's real communication?
What if AI can make sure that no one is poor and no one goes hungry again, and every person on the planet has access to water? And we decided we don't want to because we're losing our identity in the process. How is that something that you see happening?
That would be fascinating. That's almost, when I think about that, it's like we would need some sort of guidance or protection, or I mean, we're talking about guardrails that wouldn't only protect us, but would actually empower us. And I feel like the genie is out of the bottle, and we can create harm with AI. And I don't know that we could shut down the AI system that creates harm, but man, that would be beautiful.
What if we didn't have to work for our money ever again?
Like
What if
Star
we
Trek.
well, I'm just saying right now, if you think about how value is exchanged and how, you know, we're kind of exchanging value to have a better lifestyle. But what if that was not a thing anymore?
That would be beautiful. The disparity of from one person to the next is, it's sort of where innovation comes from in a twisted way, right? I'm not sure how we would get people to perform tasks to help one another if somehow they weren't benefiting from it. And I'm sure this is just my American capitalist upbringing. I love the idea of what if everybody was free? Ronsley, I've got another question for you. What if I was a bot? What if we had this exact same conversation and you knew that everything you're seeing, everything I'm expressing was generated by an artificial intelligent agent? Would you value this conversation the same, or how would you view it differently?
I would love that conversation, primarily because for me, I know that the conversations I'm having are a reflection of myself. And I would love to be able to have a conversation where I know the reflection of myself can keep moving along when I can have this conversation with someone, challenge certain things, get to a point. Humans will not get across a certain boundary, for example. Like, oh, I have this thought, but should I say it? It might not be appropriate. But if it was an AI bot, I don't think it would have that problem in saying it.
You just
And
turn the filter off.
yeah, well, I feel like we filter a lot, right? And you think about how much we filter for the world, how much do we edit for the world, what comes, what we think versus what actually comes out of our mouth. I I think there would be so much value actually having a conversation with AI bot. Because if you think about the amount of conversations we have inside our minds, to be able to have someone that can feel to your point at the start of the conversation, feeling heard and being heard is probably one of the biggest human needs. And if we can solve that, why not? I think that would be great.
Yeah, an AI therapist would be great. Like, no problem. Like, you're not going to judge me.
Right. And that's for everyone. That's available for everyone, right? On the planet. Imagine what that could do for mental health.
Hmm.
That's a great question.
Yeah, there's so much evil potential in proliferation of bot communication. What if everybody had access to a virtual therapist that would remember them and care for them and love them and give them the support they needed and let them speak unfiltered, say the things that they can't say to people they love and people who they care about, and have an unfiltered place that they could unload on? That'd be really beautiful.
Thanks for doing this. Hey, AI geek. Thanks for listening. Your job doesn't stop here. I want you to lend your voice to the conversation. So you can join those conversations, discussions, new trainings, new recordings, and the rest of the AI Geeks by going to aigeeks.co/Discord. Also, share this podcast with a friend, another potential AI geek. Until then, much love.